Howdy, darlings. My name is SimplyVelca, and today, honey, we're going to be getting into my first astral projecting experience when I experienced my first shadow demon, darling. If you've done any research at all when it comes to astral projecting, lucid dreaming, darling, which are two very different things, I get into another about this in another video, which I'll leave a link somewhere around here for you to check out, as well as even sleep paralysis, darling. Many people will recount a time of where they experienced a shadow demon. Spoiler alert, I knew who this shadow demon was when I first experienced them, so I have a lot of thoughts when it comes to my own personal gnosis on what a shadow demon actually is and why people have this common tie with experiencing a shadow demon. So if that is of interest to you, if you connected with a shadow demon as well, darling, leave it in the comments below, and maybe this video will just be either just enjoyable to listen to or help you and give some perspective on your own personal spiritual gnosis as well. I also want to give a lovely shout out to my friend Sam Fox, who actually created the picture that I'm using in my thumbnail. He allowed me to use his photo. He's actually the brother of my other friend Tom Fox, who actually created the music for my YouTube channel. I'll leave his link to his Instagram down below, but he's such a lovely artist, and please check him out if you haven't already in his Instagram. So darlings, when it came to experiencing this shadow demon, it was about, I want to say it was about 5 years ago, 5, 6, maybe 4 years ago, give or take, darling. I had my experiences with astral projecting and connecting with demons at this point for well over 5 years at this time. So I already had a lot of experience under my belt when it came to connecting with the demonic divine as well as astral projecting. At this point in time, you know, I already had astral projected with my best friend at the time several years prior, where we were able to connect to each other's spirit guides, we were able to talk to each other, converse with each other, and then even come back to our bodies and talk to each other about the experiences and continue the conversations with one another as if like you and I having a conversation. It was so insane. But I bring this up just to let you guys know a little bit of history. When I was astral projecting at that time, rather, I still had some struggles with my senses. If I didn't already have a good connection, a good energetic rapport when it came to whatever entity, whatever being that I was trying to connect with at the time, my hearing senses was the one I was struggling with the most, admittedly. And even having an entity or a being come into my range of vision when I was astral projecting, it was a real struggle for me because I had to overcome my own internal fears and just, girl, I had to overcome my own blockages and all that, just like all of us have to. About 5 years ago, I was really delving much heavier into my work when it came to connecting to the demonic deities, the demonic divine. I always like to see, regardless of what categories humans like to put, angels, demons, girl, extraterrestrial, darling, those are all just categories that humans put on. I always like to view these otherworldly beings as just kind of like mentors, as beings that have something that could either just provide enlightenment to me, a perspective, something to teach me, kind of just, yeah, truly just as mentors. When it came to connecting with demons, I didn't really have this internal fear when it comes to them, because I acknowledged that what has been put out by out there in the world when it comes to demons and the perspective of demons, I knew it's just from the person's bias. I'm very much the type of person that likes to experience things in front of me. How I base all of my really spiritual beliefs off of is stuff that I can actually experience in the astral, or that I can actually see that's experienced with myself. I don't like to really follow the rules of other people's paths because that's their path, darling, that's not mine, right? So at this point in time, I wasn't able to just astral project at any point in time that I wanted to. It's still a little bit of a struggle for me, but at this point, like when I was astral projecting probably, I want to say like 2 or 3 times a month at this point. And at this time, I was connecting heavily with one specific demon at this time. We'll call them Billy. I'll call this demon Billy. And so at this point in time, when I was connecting with Billy outside of the astral, I had an altar set up for Billy. I would connect to Billy every single day, do meditations to feel their energy, just really trying to attune myself to their energies. And so this is early on with my connection with Billy happened. And so there was just one night I went to sleep, actually in the same bedroom, darling. I went to sleep at this point in time when it came to astral projecting, I would always catch myself when I would first wake up, I could catch myself having this vibrational state of where I could leave my body. And so that's what happened this night. You know, it was kind of just like no other nights, darling. I just was, you know, just having a little bit of a slumber, darling. No set intentions on really trying to connect with anything or anyone, because I wasn't anticipating astral projecting, darling. So whenever it first happened, I was just like, ooh, girl, gotta go, right? So When I first was trying to leave my body, as I always say, when I'm trying to astral project, I always will just ask for help from my spirit guides, from those that are just around me, right? And without fail, I always will feel some type of hand grab me, whether it's on my hand or just some part of my body, and pulling me out, right? At this time, whenever I'm asking for help to be pulled out, darling, I don't care who you are at the time. I just want to get out of my body, darling, because that's just my first main goal in mind, is just to get out. So I was in this vibrational state, darling. I was feeling it. I was like, ooh, I'm so close, darling. And I asked for help. I felt some hand, something, darling, or maybe it wasn't even a hand, darling, grabbed me and then pulling me out. And at this point in time, I was still around my body, actually. I was still in this room. And I was sitting at the very corner of my bed. I had a different bed at this time, but I was still sitting in the corner of my bed. Now, if you don't know this, when you're astral projecting, the closer you are to your body, it's kind of like it's kind of like a magnet or like a black hole, for lack of a better comparison, where the closer you are to your body, the more dull your senses are. I have some personal beliefs on why this is, but that's another video. But you will feel like this pulling back to your body, as well as the dulling of your senses. And so I was sitting at the corner of my bed. I saw my body just laying there, darling. I looked fabulous, darling. I was just like, oh, okay, I'm still in the same room. Could see everything that was there, darling. I was just looking around, just having my, just trying to figure out what I wanted to do next. Because as I said, I wasn't really planning on leaving my body in the first place. So when I was looking around, when I was looking at my body, I noticed there was this shadowy figure, this dark cloud that was right next to my body on the top left-hand corner of my head. And I was just like, ooh, girl, like I didn't know what it was. And I didn't even know it was an entity initially. And immediately when I locked eyes, I didn't see the eyes at the time, but I locked in on this black energy. I heard this guttural, very just, I don't know, there's just a very primal growl. And I was just like at this point in time, I was just like, whoa, I wasn't having any type of fear in terms of being possessed or losing my body and all that, because in my personal gnosis, I don't feel like that's actually a fear when you're astral projecting. It's people make this concern as if, oh, you be careful about losing connection to your body and all that, when if for anyone that actually has astral projected, really the tough task is learning how to stay out of your body for long. So when I heard this guttural, primal growl, I immediately just started crying, because I was just like, girl, I don't know what this is. I'm feeling overwhelmed. I'm just like, girl, am I about to just get my ass whooped or something, honey? But the weird thing was, at this point in time, when I heard this growl, I started sobbing, darling, ugly crying, but I still felt gravitated towards connecting to this shadowy being. And immediately, I also knew when I heard this growl that it was Billy. And so with all these mixed feelings, I was extremely scared, but at the same time, I just wanted to just it's gonna sound crazy, but I also wanted to just hug this being as well. It doesn't make any sense, right? If you hear just this really primal, it didn't feel aggressive is the best way I can put it, but hearing this growl, and it's just you wanting to just hug it, it's just girl, what? That's just not me either. I don't even mess with spiders. I don't mess with nature, darling. When it comes to animals and all that, that's not me. I have such a respect for nature. Even my cat Tulip, she can just leave a little bit of a hiss, darling. I'm like, all right. I respect things very much so. I let things be to themselves, right? But at this point, I was just sobbing. I was sobbing, and I just started crawling over towards this shadowy being, this shadow demon, and I knew just somehow deep inside me that I was Billy. I can't really explain how I knew. It was just a gut instinct with me, and so it's crazy to even think about. But I was just sobbing and going towards this shadowy being, and eventually I just came in and just embraced it. Now I heard still again this guttural, low primal growling again, but for some reason I just didn't associate it with danger. But still, it was freaking me out, because at this point in time I really wasn't hearing much, and if anything, in the astral until this point. So really it startled me as well, because I wasn't used to hearing things at this time. So when I finally started embracing the shadowy demon, Billy, that's when it was just this weird feeling of, I don't even know how to really describe it. I didn't really experience some type of temperature change kind of compared to to like how I had with Lilith. It was just this sense of where just really just locking arms was just like a different energetic vibration. And the longer I embraced it, the more I felt connected to it, and the more that the shadowiness of this shadow demon started to dissipate. I started seeing more of like a figure being presented towards me. And so at this time, when it comes to astral projecting, darling, you always have to work on your mental mastery or mental focus and not allowing your emotions or anything to overwhelm you. And because I was already close to my body, it was kind of short-lived. It felt like it was forever in the moment because I was just like freaking out, darling. But it was probably about like 5 to 10 seconds, where I was embracing this and I was noticing the shift. And then I ended up back in my body. And when I came back into my body and I snapped back and I was just like taking it all in, I was just like, oh my God, like trying to really just process everything. So I went to a friend at the time and I messaged them trying to get their perspective on this as well, trying to figure out like what they thought of this experience as well. I didn't really feel this sense of fear over connecting to Billy, but at the same time, I was just like, what was this that just happened, darling? I just was trying to unpack everything. I came to accept that I was actually Billy that I was connecting with, and I noticed from that astral projecting experience onward, my connecting with Billy was a lot easier, whether it was through astral projecting or even just through meditation, connecting with Billy and hearing his messages. Everything just came a lot clearer. I had just a lot more clarity. And so what my suspicions were, and I have no way to really confirm this or not, but I felt as if that was my way of getting in better energetic alignment when it came to connecting with Billy. Because when you first see like a shadowy figure, and this is where I go into why like a lot of people experience like a shadowy demon or what have you, is that when you think of these otherworldly beings, whether it be albeit a demon, archangel, like spirit guide, what have you, you're functioning at different vibrations. And I want you to think about it like this. You know, when you're changing the radio station, and it's just like you'll get closer to a station but you hear a bunch of static, right? And so as you turn the knob and you get closer to that radio station that's playing that music, darling, it becomes a little bit more clear and the static starts fading away. That's kind of like how I see energy when it comes to connecting with different spiritual forces. So if you're right here and the being that you're connecting to is over here, while it takes a lot of energy for you guys, for this being up here, for you to see them or even conceptual, like see them in your vision, because they have to bring themselves lower. And so until that point, until you guys are in closer points, you're gonna have a bunch of like that white noise, or in this case, just like that black energy, until you guys start getting closer and closer in alignment. And so I took me actually embracing Billy, the shadow demon, darling, and really having our energies intertwine. I viewed this as a way of our energies coming closer together. And that's how I was able to start seeing more of a figure come into play when I started hugging them longer and longer. And so that's what I have my suspicions on when it comes to any person experiencing a shadow demon, is that they might actually be, I'm not here to categorize what they're experiencing or who they're connecting to, but I feel as if many people's experiences when they see like a shadow demon or a shadow figure is that they're actually seeing an otherworldly not a demon, but an otherworldly spirit, and that is just out of a different vibration that you haven't quite energetically attuned yourself to, where you guys are on of a similar vibration, right? So keep in mind, when I was connecting with Billy before this, like it was still fresh in our connection. So I viewed that astral projecting experience as a very pivotal moment, not only for my astral projecting experiences onward for any being, but also it really shifted things for everything involving Billy, whether it came to my ritual work or just even connecting to Billy in my meditations. Our energies were just a lot more attuned to each other, so everything was just a lot easier to come through to one another at this point in time. Now, I'm not telling you guys to just embrace every single shadowy being that you experience, whether it in your dreams or astral projecting and all that, darling. You know, when it comes to spirituality, darling, the best advice that anyone can, and really the only advice anyone can give you, is to not be stupid, right? But the thing is, the spiritual path, the spiritual experience is a very personal one. So you have to really be in tune and trusting your own intuition on how things are. While even though I was sobbing, darling, and I was just an emotional wreck during the time because I was just startled, I knew deep down that it was Billy. I had no way of really clarifying this other than my own gut instinct, and no one else can really confirm this. So that's something I wanted to just touch on a little bit, is that, that shadowy figure that you might be experiencing, it might not be something that's actually trying to bring you harm, especially if you already do your own practices when it comes to shielding, wording, and doing all those protective measures. Put this in perspective. That figure is going to be there regardless of whether or not you're aware of them or not, right? When you're sleeping, when I was sleeping, darling, Billy was right there chilling already, from that point forward. If they wanted to do something, they would have done it, right? So that's my perspective on it, is that when it comes to astral projecting or anything that I'm doing spiritually, I have enough trust in the protective measures that I've already done, as well as the beings that I've connected with. Because until then, at this point in time, I already had a very nice long rapport history when it came to a lot of angelic beings, my ancestors, and especially my spirit guides, who years prior. I had so much history prior to having this experience that it didn't really, in my brain, I wasn't even thinking or considering that it was something dangerous, because I just thoroughly believe that anything that's trying to bring me harm wouldn't have been able to come through. So that's my experience with that. Maybe this wasn't all that interesting or exciting of a video that you might have expected, but hopefully it gives you some food for thought or something to consider. As I always say, when I get to talking about astral projecting, I really implore everyone to start exploring it, because it will just give such a sense of confidence, such a sense of security in the things that you are experiencing. Astral projecting really is the foundation for everything that I do, because it just adds just this nice layer of confidence, or this assurance, darling, that I need, that any practitioner needs when it comes to their practices, right? The more confident you are, the more sure you are of the things that you are doing, the more potent those things are going to be, right? Because it removes the veils of unsureness and all that. Even, I'm sure, on some level, just me being able to embrace and actually connect with Billy in the astral removed some of my own personal blockages of the time of being like, oh, well, maybe this is all in my head, and so on and so forth, darling, right? So yeah, that's my video that I have on that. I have many astral projecting experiences, especially including Billy, if y'all are interested in hearing that. But let me know y'all's experiences as well in the comments below. Let me know if you want to hear anything else when it comes to astral projecting, because I have many stories to share, but I'm not going to bother sharing them unless people find it interesting, I suppose. But yeah, I love you so much, and if you haven't heard it today, darling, I see you, I hear you, and I love you so much. Bye, y'all.